We are Dennis and Min. Come join us on our traveling adventures around the world. Hey everybody, thank you for joining our channel Higher Power Travel, where we continue the segment on why we are leaving Hawaii and going to Portugal. There's many reasons, of course, and one of the reasons that affects that decision is housing. And so this segment, we're going to be talking about what living in Hawaii, in particular on Oahu, where I've been living for almost 30 years, is like in the housing market, and compare that to Portugal, where we have purchased actually 2 properties over there and have been spending some time in Portugal. As a disclaimer, I am also a realtor and have been for almost 20 years. I've had a passion for real estate for about 30, but it took me a little while to get into the industry. And so maybe by the time you watch this, I'll be fully retired. But for right now, I'm phasing myself out, hopefully over this next year or so. I do love what I do, but as I mentioned in previous videos, we are looking forward to starting this new life in retirement abroad. So we're going to get right into some numbers. Another reason people are leaving Hawaii, sadly, is the cost of living. The cost of living in Hawaii as a state is 86% higher than the rest of the country. So again, people are living paycheck to paycheck more than they should. And again, we see that actually increasing. The cost of housing in Hawaii is over 200% more than the average housing cost in the US. And for those of you that are thinking about moving from some part of the country in the US to Hawaii, do be aware that the size of the home that you're accustomed to in whatever state you're in is probably going to be twice as large as the home that you would be living in Hawaii, and certainly on Oahu, because homes are just built smaller here. I think the average size home might be 2,000 square feet, give or take. And it's about half of that here on Oahu. That whether you rent or buy, it doesn't make a difference. You just get used to smaller spaces, less to clean. That's a good thing. Always look for the silver lining, right? So we're going to get right into some of these numbers, but that's a huge impact on the residents here, is that high housing cost. Whether you rent, whether you buy, it doesn't matter. It's still expensive. Why is that? There's multiple reasons, but one of the largest reasons is because Hawaii is an island. Oahu is an island in the middle of the Pacific, one of the most remote parts of the world there is. And for that reason, there is a finite amount of land. And so, as you know, Hawaii is a very desirable place. Oahu's always been a very desirable place to visit and live. And so they have not kept up with building new homes and more homes. And this is not a recent problem. This is something that's been lagging behind for decades. There is just simply a housing shortage. So what we see in Hawaii, on Oahu, in Honolulu, are people are building onto their existing homes. Remember, the average original homes were 1,000 square feet, maybe 1,200 square feet. If you have an original home built before 1970 that's more than 1,500 square feet, woo, that's a mansion, Hawaii standards. So a lot of people, they have the land in which they can do that. So they do additions, they build CPRs, they build ADUs, and this is a way that they can allow their extended families to stay there under one roof, so to speak, where they might have separate entryways and be able to have their grandparents still reside with them, have their adult children and their children. We see that, I don't know, maybe here more than anywhere else. So you have a lot of Ohana family living in very close proximity to each other. And sometimes that's by choice, but oftentimes It's because they have to, because their adult children, they might be in their 20s and 30s, maybe 40s, they cannot afford their own home. So we're going to get into some numbers here. This is for the ending of the first quarter 2024. The median price for a single family home on Oahu, $1.1 million. For a condominium, the median price is $500,000. Okay, and pair that with the average salary as of May 2024 here on Oahu is $77,000. So more than a lot of other states, the incomes are fairly good here in Hawaii on Oahu, and part of that's because people have to work 2 and 3 jobs, but they still struggle to save money after expenses and taxes and everything else that hits them. They still struggle to save enough money for a down payment for a house. And so that's just the reality. And for people that are looking at renting, some of the highest rents in the country are here in Hawaii. For example, the average rent for a 1-bedroom is $1,700. This is on Oahu. That would get you just under 500 square feet. So the average rent for a studio is $1,400. 348 square feet for that studio. And if you want to splurge on a 2-bedroom, the average rent's going to be just under $2,200 a month. That'll get you 762 square feet. So a little cozy for that 2-bedroom. The 3-bedrooms average rent is $3,500. And that would be with a little over 1,000 square feet. One thing also to note that in Hawaii, on Oahu, the maintenance fees, if you live in a condo and own a condo, the maintenance fees on average for a 1-bedroom will probably be starting around in the mid to high 400s, and they can go all the way up to $2,000 a month. So obviously it's going to depend on the condition and age of the building, the amenities, what utilities are covered. So there's a lot of things that factor in there. So those costs do add up. So that gives you an overview with the Oahu, Honolulu real estate, what it costs to buy, what it costs to rent. How does that compare with Portugal? Well, Portugal, again, we're comparing a small island, set of islands in the Pacific Ocean to an entire country, right? So again, let's keep the proper context here. Portugal is a country of about 10, 11 million people, and it's diverse. If you think about California, very diverse between the coastal areas and then the interior areas of the country. There's going to be a big disparity in housing prices. One little tip on a website that provides data for real estate is called Idealista. Idealista. I'll try to remember to put a link down below so you can check that out. I can't remember how well that works from the US, but certainly if you're traveling in Europe, in Portugal, it's kind of like the Zillow for that region. And there you can get a lot of information. So one of the downsides with real estate in Portugal is there is no centralized MLS system like we have in the US. Again, as a realtor for the past 20 years, I really appreciate a centralized MLS, and I think most clients do as well. And especially now that it's all made public, where you can just go online and pretty much look at any property that's available for sale or that has recently sold. And the sales data, the sales history, the tax information is all there. Unfortunately, many countries are not there yet and have yet to catch up. Portugal is one of those. So there's no one central place to find what's available for sale. And the realtor's situation, it's a little bit frustrating because realtors will tend to only show you what properties they have listed. So they would be happy to represent you as well as the seller. So what most people end up doing is just finding whatever realtors they can find that can show them properties that they may be interested in. And so again, it takes a little bit longer to see what's available, to see really what is in your price point and what parameters that you're looking for. And the other aspect with purchasing property in Portugal is that I would recommend, especially if you're a foreigner, an expat, somebody that doesn't live in Portugal, that you definitely want to hire an attorney to represent your interest when purchasing there. Very, very important. We actually, had an okay attorney. I think they probably could have done a little bit better, but the process was actually smoother and simpler than I anticipated. But I would definitely recommend making sure you hire an attorney to represent your buying interest when in Portugal. And ideally, you would have a representative on your side as the buyer, in addition to whoever the realtor is that's representing the seller. For the property that we first bought there in Portugal, it didn't work out quite that way. We actually used the listing agent to represent us on the buy side, but we also had an attorney representing our interest, and everything was actually smooth and fine. We consider that realtor a friend. And if you'd like to know more about that whole experience of us buying a property, actually we purchased two, leave a comment and we'd be happy to provide more details on that process. For right now, again, we want to stick to the comparisons of the housing market between Portugal and Hawaii. Now, the other thing is in Portugal, housing is less expensive in general, but it's getting more expensive because there are a lot of expats, and the Golden Visa and whatnot has brought a lot of attention and people to that country for investment purposes and to relocate. And so we've seen home prices go up all throughout the country, but believe it or not, you can probably spend 2/3 less to half to 2/3 less than what you would be spending in Hawaii on a property in Portugal. Meaning that the place that we purchased was a condo, a 2-bedroom, 2-bath condo, and we probably would have spent 3 times, maybe 4 times more for that same property in a comparable location here on Oahu. So that's the difference, and that's with a view of the ocean. And so there's areas in the interior you can just go 2 miles, 3 miles, 4 miles, 5 miles inland with no view, but perhaps some beautiful mountain views and valleys for considerably less. So you can actually get homes that have been renovated, condos for $100,000 over there. They have fixer-uppers that you can purchase for $25,000, $50,000. They might be very small, they might be made out of stone, but you have a huge variety of homes available, and newer construction condos as well. Again, if you're going to be not having to be right near on the coast or with a view, you can get a really affordable place there in a lot of areas of Portugal. So again, we'll get into more details about our process and where we ended up purchasing, perhaps at a later video. Again, drop a comment. So I hope that helps share some insight as to the difference between the housing cost in Hawaii and Portugal. Keep in mind that in Portugal, again, they're making a lot less in wages. Their average salary is probably half that of the U.S. So again, in Hawaii, my understanding is the wages are higher than the average in the U.S. And whatever that average is in the U.S., I'm thinking it's around $24,000, $25,000 a year. It's about half of that in Portugal. So again, they have many options, but again, in certain areas like in and around Lisbon, home prices are, like we see in Hawaii, shutting people out from being able to enter the market because they just can't afford those higher priced homes. So we see that problem happening throughout Portugal. We've been seeing it happen for many, many years throughout Hawaii and on Oahu. Again, there's not just one reason for that happening, and there's certainly not going to be just one easy answer to solve that problem. But it is a reality. People are getting priced out of housing, and that's why we're going to continue to see this exodus of people leaving Hawaii for many reasons, but housing is probably one of the biggest reasons why people are having to consider elsewhere. Not necessarily Portugal, but other parts of the country where the cost of living is less. So I hope that shares a little bit of insight into why we have considered putting some of our money on housing in another country. Drop a comment, please like and subscribe, and stay tuned for more videos on these differences between Portugal and Hawaii. Aloha.